you've all obviously succeeded in getting sales and getting traction. You've got lots of clients, hundreds, maybe thousands between you. And yet we hear that adoption in real estate, in property, is very, very slow, and it's very early days. How are you finding the response across the table at the moment from property companies? How willing are they to try new things? Anybody want to kick things off there? Bronny, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think, coming from the Australian market to the UK 18 months ago with Equiem, I think the market in the UK and here in the rest of Europe is very ready for change. I see a lot of landlords really excited about what's happening in PropTech. They're definitely getting out and understanding what's happening. But there's still some hesitation, I think, in making decisions about what they need to do for their assets, what's going to be future-proofed for them. They don't want to make a mistake. And as someone said in a panel earlier, there's not necessarily the right skill set in every organisation to be making these decisions. So we're seeing a lot of big landlords beefing up their team in the tech space and now putting in analysts and tech experts to help advise on what they should be doing to take the businesses into the future.
Okay.
I think as well, the industry is changing. Like, landlords are absolutely adopting technology, but we have to also be aware that there's a lot of noise in the marketplace. You've got Brookfield carving out 200 million to invest in technology. You've got Blackstone investing 100 million. You've got Fifth Wall. You've got JLL, Spark and Concrete. So you've got this absolute influx of the industry trying to get in on the action, which in itself is driving even more and more tech solutions, which is making the marketplace even more crowded and confusing. So sifting through all the noise and analyzing all the options out there, from pointed solutions to platform solutions, it's a big ask. And I think, to your point, we don't have the skill set necessarily in the industry to help us go through that process. Procurement is a little bit old school and a little bit 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. So I think the industry is going to up-level its skill set, but then we need to make it easier for the industry to buy and educate and help the industry understand where the value is.
I think it's also about solving a real-time problem. Are we solving something that's currently not functioning? And that's what we've seen with visitor management, for example. That's been stuck in the 80s, where you come in, can you write down your name, please, which company you're from, and then you need to put a signature down as well. And half of the time, you don't even know what you're signing for. And if you then ask the receptionist or security team, they don't even know. It's so backdated. And when we started the company 12 years back, the technology wasn't ready for the QR codes that were available to everybody on each phone. You had to have specific codes created for specific phones. Now with the iPhone and with Android, it's much more of a universal language where people can code on and develop on. And that's where I think the strength has gone as well. And now we've been part of that change, and we're making the change as well by saying, hey, we can do this better. We can make that experience for visitors much more enhanced, or for staff as well, because it sometimes can be difficult to get visitors into a building, but they might be there for a very important meeting. They might be there to sign that big deal that they need to propel to the next level. And I think with some of the companies that we work with, Knight Frank, which we're working together with Equiem, with JLL, they've just, in their head office, started using our solution. But yes, in the beginning, it takes some time, and it does come to the fact, like, are you solving a real-time problem for me? And how are we going to incorporate that, and how are we going to use it to make sure that it is a benefit for everybody?
Okay, Doug, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, just a point on the industry. Like, it reminds me, I did an app a month after the App Store came out, and back then, that was 2008, everybody was building an app, and there was so much noise going on, and it really, really reminds me of that period right now where, the appetite is ever growing from the commercial real estate side. And I guess normally I'm a t-shirt and hoodie guy, so as a techie trying to speak to the property market, it feels like the software engineers haven't properly fully embraced the industry yet, but it's happening. Clearly, it's happening. So I think it's an exciting time, and we're right at the cusp of it.
Okay.
Just to add on
Yep.
that, yeah, definitely the industry is changing. From our perspective, that we really sell cross-sector, so not only real estate, but also financial services, consulting companies. So we really have a view on, a wider view on different industries. And we clearly see that sales cycle is much faster in the financial services industry. Also because, let's say, hedge fund, private equity, have been used to especially use this kind of disruptive technologies, alternative data sets for much longer than real estate. So their skill sets is definitely there. We need to catch up on that, but also in terms of budgets, especially for disruptive technologies, really real estate sometimes don't have a budget for this kind of tools, while other industries like hedge funds, private equity companies might have.
Okay, please do put your hand up if you want to put a question to the panel from the floor. We've had some interesting questions come through on the Slido panel as well. Nobody seems to be talking about blockchain. Is that dead already?
Can I pick that one up? So I really kind of peer pressure dived into it. Went to Zug in the canton and in Switzerland, Crypto Valley, and I had a friend of mine that smokes a lot of cannabis and became a multi-millionaire because he ran a Bitcoin meetup, and he's now looking at buying islands. It's quite sickening. I didn't invest in that at the time. Maybe he kept telling me to.
We do not advocate the use of drugs. we've had crack mentioned, we've had cannabis, enough already.
Yeah. But on the point of the technology, from our assessment at the moment, it's really early days. So you've got incredible promise, but the technology isn't scalable yet, and the cost of the technology is not economically there yet. So that's my assessment of the blockchain technology. But phenomenal potential.
Okay.
Unless we master quantum computing, then that breaks that.
Okay, gentlemen on the front want to...
Yes, Managing Director for Swedish Blockchain Association.
Okay.
You're going to kill me now.
Some bias, of course, from my side, but I think one of the soon-to-be realized potential of blockchain is opening up a pretty, at least traditionally, big market where the entry point is quite high.
Yep.
Blockchain and tokenization can open up for small-time investors to buy fractions of I don't know, hotels or spas or whatever. And that is actually a good friend of mine working with a company called Tokenine. Works with that and has several platforms and projects in Monaco and London doing just that. So it's happening.
I'm a massive fan. I'm just waiting for it to be commercially
maybe
ready.
earlier in the whole sort of cycle, it's about the big ideas, but it's maybe not in the practical stage that some other tech is. And it's not just currency as well, it's the smart contracts and the democratization of information, not just one person releasing it. And certainly Aaron Block at Metaprop has said, if you think the future isn't in blockchain contracts and transactions, then you're dead, basically. And you wouldn't bet against him. The gentleman behind wanted to put something as well.
Yeah, I want to ask the panel about the future ahead, what you think about in 5 years ahead, and what you think about AI technology.
Okay, question about AI and the picture in 5 years' time. Anybody? Just small
Didn't take
questions.
long to get to blockchain and AI, did it? So my take on AI is, if you change the word AI to just smart technology, that is already in place today. So, there's stuff we do at VTS with our algorithms and things like that. Smart technology is absolutely in the DNA of a lot of the tech companies you'll see today. So it is there and it is happening. Do I believe that the Terminator-style robot is going to come and replace all of us in the property industry? No. I think AI is going to have a big impact on our industry, but I still am a big believer that people plus computers are going to have the biggest impact. You take one away and they are nowhere near as efficient as being together. So I think AI is going to evolve. It is already evolving, and the technologies are going to become really impressive. But I still think the people element, particularly in real estate and very people-focused industry, when you bring the two together is where the real power will happen. And 5 years, yeah, that's on the horizon. It's famously said, you overestimate the next 10 years and underestimate the next 18 months, 2 years. The change is happening right now. 5 years is sort of right in the middle, so I can kind of sit on the fence and say, sure, maybe.
I'd recommend to the gentleman a book called Superintelligence. I'm happy to speak to you about it afterwards, but I think it's important that people understand the differences in artificial intelligence. So you have machine learning taking place, then there's general learning, and I think we're quite some way off from singularity, but that's a problem for another day.
Indeed. Bronny, yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There is a massive increase in tech. We're all seeing it, and I think the future in the next 5 years will be, about automation, about shifting property management, essentially from being quite a manual process with a lot of spreadsheets, people figuring things out, to, automating all of those things so we can start focusing on other things. And from where we sit, that's a huge focus on the customer experience. It's about flexible space, it's about integrating wellness into the work environment, and it's about treating, the occupiers in our building as the customer. And we've already seen that shift, but we've still got a long way to go in really crafting those experiences. When we look at 2025, 75% of the workforce will be millennials. And we're seeing some properties who are really gearing themselves up to cater to that market, and we're seeing a lot of properties that are still scratching their heads and wondering what they need to do. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. We're a big data startup, so we use a lot of machine learning to clean up our data, derive patterns from terabytes and terabytes of data, and also doing automated geofencing. But still, if you think about that, you need to ask the right questions when you're using the platform. So we need a human, we need an analyst that really understand the industry, and that I think will never be replaced.
Okay, another question from the floor. We've got time for one or two more before we break.
I'm Timo. Question about AI. The question about AI led to an observation. We are also in the big data landscape, working with Enrico, for instance. Another angle. A lot of senior people from major companies in this industry attend conferences like these. They listen to all the acronyms, starting with AI and downwards. The reality is that spreadsheets are still prevalent, ERPs are still prevalent, and how about the gap between acronyms and the long-term view or vision or curious way of entering events like this and the actual reality? When we see WeWorks and all these entrants eating up major parts of the value chain in the industry, when will it actually happen?
So,
There's a huge gap between acronyms and actually attending conferences and going back to
so a sort of tipping point. When will adoption really accelerate and become more widespread? Yeah.
Well, I think with our company, we already see that, because with our 3 products that we have in place, we can provide data and automation. So for me, AI, that is something I'll talk about in another way, at another time. But with regards to what we provide is data that people can actually do something with. So if you want to create a report to say, I want to see how many visitors are a no-show. For example, we've had the University of Derby recently gone live using our product. And one of their pain points is very simple, parking. They don't have enough parking spaces. That's what they think. With our solution, what they're now able to do is generate a report on a daily basis that says, okay, we've got so many visitors coming in, but we've got, at the end of the day, so many no-shows. Therefore, we have enough parking because we have 140 no-shows, for example. That, over a large period of time, could generate a percentage of no-shows which hotels use to overbook. That is the automation that we're talking about. That's the automation that we think will set us apart from others and will drive that usage, as you're saying as well, rather than just talking about it, the actual usage of that data. So, and we already see that.
So, I mean, how will we reach the hard-to-reach parts, the quieter parts that aren't at the conferences, that, the old school sort of pinstripe, surveyors? How do we get into those parts of the market?
I think definitely everything starts with having structured data, as Charlie was mentioning before. If you don't have structured data, you can't do much with that. So starting from the basics, and then you apply other layers on top. I'm especially speaking here about real estate organizations, but you need to start with a data layer, which is structured, organized, and then you can think about applying analytics on top. And potentially, if you really have big data, you apply artificial intelligence, machine learning, whatever you want, but you need to start with the basics.
Okay, Doug, quickly.
I think, to answer the gentleman's question, I think competitive pressure will kick through. There's an adoption curve with any technology. There's always the laggards, the early adopters. And I feel like when it comes to the real estate industry, the occupiers will drive the changes. They will expect and demand a certain level of service and experience. And buildings that don't adapt will have more, they'll have more occupancy requirements. They'll be more empty.
Let's just be clear, it is happening. Like, the gap is absolutely being closed. We always talk about crawl, walk, run, and to your point around sort of the pinstripes of this world, if you leave this conference today and go back to your day-to-day and you're doing something that's incredibly frustrating, you just think there's got to be an easier way of doing this. There absolutely probably is. And it's quite an absolutely probably is a solution to that. Yeah. So covered all my bases. But technology is there to help change that shift, and something that I have learned and found really interesting over the evolution of ETS is some of those preconceived ideas of the laggards or the pinstripe or the older guy or girl who's been doing it for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. They might have been experiencing the pain points way longer than all of you, and therefore when the solution comes along, the amount of times they turn around and go, oh, I wish I had this 15 years ago, or something like that. So don't stereotype in the industry. It's definitely changing.
Charlie, I, on your point of it doesn't come as quick as you would think it would. If you're a technologist, I get frustrated that we don't have autonomous cars already. The thought of someone drunk driving a 1-ton piece of metal, it's just, it's ridiculous. I'm sure this gentleman from the blockchain organization gets frustrated why this isn't standard already, but I think it happens.
It's happening.
Okay. Sorry, we've just got time for one more question there, and then we'll wrap up.
I'm Mike, I'm an architect in Manchester. Just a question. Charlie and I were talking last night about it's phenomenal how much data is being collected. Getting data is one thing, and using it productively is another. Excuse me. Question to Enrico. I was going to ask a daft question about what is geofencing, but I just looked it up. But my question is about human mobility. Human mobility and privacy of data.
Absolutely.
How do we reconcile that? Because from a quick look at geofencing, it works that when you pass a certain geographical point, it triggers
Yes.
using a mobile device. Because I was interested in that slide where it shows where people come from to go to the retailer. So how do we deal with, how do we reconcile or square them?
Yep. Absolutely. So that's a question we get quite often, as you can imagine. So all the data we buy and that we process is anonymized at source. So we don't know whose device is which, first of all. And then we're not capturing the individual moving around. We're capturing aggregate flows of people. So we're not showing in the platform, let's say, patterns, unless there are probably 30, 50 people visiting a place throughout some time. So we're not really interested in where your wife went last night. It's more about capturing socio-economical impact that are relevant for businesses rather than individual movement.
It's a really interesting point, though, because as an industry, we are very, very pointed towards single points of data.
Yeah.
The rent in that building was $50 a square foot. It was a 10-year lease term. That's valuable information, but what is more valuable is, okay, in this sub-market right now, what's the average rent? Interesting. Can I slice it down by type of building, square foot of building, the type of occupier that looked at it? Anonymized and aggregated big information to just dictate trends. Nobody is able to capture that today. So we all default back to, you're going to show everyone what my rent was in that building and who that. No, like it's not about that. It's about taking lots and lots of data, anonymizing it, aggregating it, data density, data quality, and then sending it back to you in a way for you to make an informed decision. You can use it, you can ignore it. That's the power of data.